urban security expert and smart city expert. He is in charge of coordinating the Safer Cities program and at the UN for more than 17 years. So welcome, Mr. Asiago.
All right, very good. Thank you very much to the University of Mondragon, Mexico, for hosting this wonderful platform on the business experience, and for inviting the United Nations to join you at this particular time. I am sure many of you do recognize that the aspect of the United Nations is really to drive the sustainable development agenda. And business is a key dimension of that agenda. You may want to ask yourself why safety becomes a key conduit of this particular aspect, given that when we talk about business experience, we often look at ourselves from the economics of the investment climate and less to the enablers to that type of investment climate. Now, for us at the UN, and particularly UN Habitat, our focus is really to see to it that places, the environment in which cities prosper, which is largely cities, towns, and other forms of human settlements, provide the necessary conditions that enable business to thrive. And one of the ways is really looking at the safety of cities, looking at the safety of cities from a human rights perspective, as well as a social inclusion perspective. Guiding us in this agenda is the action plan that the 193 countries of the world came together in 2015 to set into motion with a goal to achieve sustainable development by the year 2030. And in this sustainable development agenda, we have a set of 17 goals, 17 goals that also include a goal that really reflects on cities and human settlements. That's SDG 11. And when you look at that SDG goal, you realize 4 tenets associated with what a sustainable city would look like in 2030. One of them is safety. It's a key dimension of looking at cities today and taking cities not as bad outcomes of development, but looking at cities as the greatest human invention this far. Looking at cities as a source of development. When we begin to approach policy and program in our cities with the outlook of cities in this perspective as engines of economic growth, then we begin to enable business to begin to thrive in an environment that facilitates prosperity. You could tell that as the United Nations, our key client is the government. And for Habitat, the lowest level of government closest to the people holds a strong aspect in terms of the capacitation of cities. In this 21st century, we now know today that the world has become urban, more urban than rural. The urban dimension of the city means that today, in terms of the way we live, we are driven by aspects of urbanism that define our lifestyles, our behaviors, our circumstances. So much so that in anthropological terms, one would say that the human being has evolved from being just simply a Homo sapien to one that can be considered as a Homo urbanus. That means a lot in terms of the heterogeneity of our way of life today. The old 20th century model, which was drawn and driven around the invention of the car, has created cities that are considered to be sprawl in their existence. Today, a city like Querétaro or Mexico City is huge and large in its dimensions, and so much so that to get from one point of the city to another part of the city, we rely on forms of automobility to do so. In other words, the ability of the city to thrive as a walking city is increasingly diminished by the factors of agglomeration that define cities today. But the 2030 agenda says that to build a sustainable city, we need to begin to look at cities from a compact, mixed-use, interconnected way, where the citizen is the key actor. We need to develop cities for people and not the other way around, people for cities. To guide us in this way of trying to transform city to work for people, and for that matter, for business, we are assisting governments to develop two key policy frames. One is the national urban policies that can help guide urbanization as a source of development and not as a bad outcome of development. And two is a city development and growth strategies. When we look at safety in this dimension, safety is understood as a cross-cutting theme. Perception, whenever we speak to safety in any country, in any context, is that it's simply a police and criminal justice issue. This has been what the 20th century model has made us understand of safety. And in that sense, invest in safety with more police on our streets, with more what I call cities that are defined with hard targeted responses and interventions. The sustainable urban development model does not support that type of safety of the city. It supports a model that actually looks at more the social capital of our cities and tries to draw on the coping and resilience aspects in which citizens have exemplified in the face of crime and violence. We begin to see safety as one of those innovative spaces around which cities can actually remodel their prosperity and improve living conditions, not just for a section of the population, but for all citizens of diverse nature. And in this, we have what we call a city prosperity index, which of course also Querétaro and cities in Mexico have benefited from, which defines 6 dimensions of how we look at prosperity today. One, from a perspective of urban governance, where safety holds strong. Another, from the productivity aspect of cities, from the infrastructure development that we see in cities, from the environmental sustainability point of view, from equality and social inclusion, and finally from an aspect of the quality of life. UN Habitat has, over the past 25 years, been testing tools to try to advance this new narrative of safety. And indeed, we have plenty of evidence of what has worked and not worked at the municipal level, where safety is approached from the aspect of it being a common responsibility for all, and where citizens participate alongside their governments in the co-production of safety and security for all. In other words, we are building a local governance of safety framing where safety is not seen as a one-size-fits-all solution. It needs to be tailored to the very specific context of a city, and even more so of a neighborhood, based on the lifestyles, the behaviors, and the circumstances of the inhabitants of that area. With local governments really understood as those that can be at the leadership of safety strategies, our theory is that we need to start building more capacity of our local governments with tools that can be able to address safety and be implemented in partnership with universities, with NGOs, with private sector, with the women and youth across the board, and all the actors that participate in city build. In this way, we are able to have seen across the world over 90 cities demonstrating results of proven practice of how crime and violence has been reduced and how crime safety has become an enabler for business investment, for additional business investment, where the GDP of cities, the gross domestic product of countries, has increased with investment in proven safety innovations. We have now across the world a global network on safer cities, which houses a couple of organizations that have the necessary tools to guide cities to build socially integrated and inclusive city frameworks. We also have seen cities today as a learning environment. In other words, the city in itself is an innovation. And if we begin to see the city in this perspective, we are able then to look at what promising practices exist globally and adapt it to our own individual contexts. This is part and parcel of what the UN and UN Habitat as a convener for cities is doing today with what we call the New Urban Agenda, which was adopted in Quito in 2016. We have accompanying this New Urban Agenda a new set of guidelines on safer cities that countries adopted in 2019. And these guidelines really look at how local governments can build and promote a participatory and inclusive vision of safety that tends towards improving the social cohesion and quality of life in our everyday experiences. Fortunately, the approach to safety in cities today has mutated towards the exclusion of a certain segment of the population at the expense of the rich and the more middle income societies. We think that in order to guarantee safety in a city, we need to look at safety as a public good and look at ways of how cities move away from gated neighborhoods or segregated models of provision of security through private security to one that actually enables the citizens themselves to co-produce safety, and where rich and poor, men and women are able to transact the city without any barriers, and where the causes of crime and violence are actually addressed from a perspective of social inclusion and from a perspective of human rights. We have now developed an approach of doing so. And the approach that we integrate to municipalities include one where the municipality sets up legislation. The municipality includes the social clusters in itself, from youth, women, to participate in producing neighborhood safety. That the municipality works in developing spatial plans and designs the city in ways that improve the perception of safety in the city. The outcome of this has been an enabling environment for citizens to create their own activations. And in a what I call in a tactical urbanism approach, citizens today are manifesting lots of social innovations on the ground that actually work to improve the safety of all residents in that neighborhood. Evidence is key to inform this type of actions. And so UN Habitat has equally developed a set of diagnostic tools that inform the way citizens can come up with a common picture of crime and violence, including the private sector, and together implement a strategy which then is implemented with continuous training of a coordination team that is institutionalized within the municipality, and in which then a systematization of experiences takes place in a regular and consistent way. In effect, what you build at the end of the day is a local governance of safety framework around neighborhoods, where communities participate in a thriving environment, that communities use their creativity, their insights and thoughts to enable better quality of life for themselves and for all. The co-production of safety is one which, as I mentioned, is an innovation. And hence we need to look at cities as laboratories of safety practices. Today we have lots of innovative experiences that communities and citizens are demonstrating that have not actually been picked up and used as the solutions to our challenges of safety in our city. In as far as neighborhoods such as the Las Americas in Querétaro, with gang violence manifested, you find young people in those type of neighborhoods using their artistic and cultural instincts to improve the way safety is perceived and experienced. We see such kind of young people, not all turning into gang violence, but many of them driving their fellow young people away from gang violence into broader social justice movements using arts and culture. In a city like Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, we saw how the Afro Reggae group in one of the most violent neighborhoods of the city was able to change the levels of crime and violence by simply training the police using hip hop and graffiti. When the police came to the public space to play, to sing and to demonstrate their skills with the community on graffiti, it built a relationship of trust. What then changed was the ability to look at young people not as problems that needs to be managed and that need to be changed. What changed was the relationship between the young people and the police. These are some of the innovative ways that cities looked at as laboratories can be able to show, and where arts and culture also become cultural industries. Young people who even have fallen out of the education institutions are able to use arts and culture to build business, to build industries. And in this way, use their creativity to even generate careers, as we have seen in the football world, of many of the superstars today that came from very deprived neighborhoods of the city, but have used their skill sets to be able to transform their lives into productive livelihoods. Again, safety is able to make us see the city from a perspective of a thriving 24-hour economy. Looking at a safety policy from a nighttime policy, as the way the city of Sydney and cities in Australia have shown, creates an opportunity for business to grow and thrive. Looking at night today in all our cities, the aspect of fear of crime and violence persists. And if we are able to look at safety from a way of improving the way economy works by day and night and overcoming those challenges that create fear of crime by night by improving the design of the city, by improving the social dynamics of the city, the activations within the city, and creating legislation that enables business to thrive, we begin to see cities being generated for people. We begin to make cities more walkable, and in this way improve the safety of the city. All this can only be possible if we look at the evidence and be able to measure, understand, change, and influence the way our cities function. Today, the whole technology arena has opened up the space. Smart cities today are driven by the need to make their cities more safer. And we have seen many business companies like Huawei, NEC, IBM, or Philips, all turning to safe city solutions as a way to market their smart city approaches. We have seen the new technologies that cities are applying, ranging from sectors as transport and mobility, all looking at the aspect of safety as a prerequisite to improve the quality of life and build an integrated response of their local inhabitants. We have seen a push of looking at the city of the future from one that encourages the role of private and public sector partnerships in the local governance of safety, where the focus is the citizen and how the citizen participates in that production, where the focus is on enabling legislation that ensures transparency of data that's not just within the private realm, but becomes part of the public access. We have seen a focus on producing cities that really talk about livability and that focus on safety as a public good. We think that the opportunities provided by technologies and smart cities allow us to really overcome the governance and ownership challenges that data generated in smart cities today is facing. We need to really approach this with a laboratory aspect of the city to consolidate the knowledge that we have in the private sector field, to facilitate learning and draw out the innovations, and then in a together approach with the different actors, begin to facilitate the integrated solutions that the 21st century urban world demand. This, of course, has to be done with public taxpayers' money at the center of it. Government is the sole collector of taxes. And for this to work, we need to start empowering the lowest levels of government closest to the people as really the coordinators of that transformative process. We need to look at all our cities as with a baseline of where their own safety circumstance counts. Sometimes we are overly driven by just understanding safety from gang violence and high crime, but this is not the case. You may find also in each and every one of your neighborhoods, there is a case of lack of safety. Perhaps it's not gang violence, but maybe it is school bullying. Maybe it's intimate partner violence. Maybe it's a question of how women are experiencing fear in their in taking public transport. It is as a dimension that each and every neighbor must be tailored to each and every neighborhood, and each and every neighborhood develops its own safety interventions based on the evidence that they understand of their type of crime and violence. UN Habitat is working now to develop city safety labs and is partnered with Huawei, for example, to develop a white paper on big data for safer cities. In this perspective, we have developed some key findings, interactions, engagements with cities around the world, including Guadalajara in Mexico. Guadalajara in Mexico today has developed its prevention policy with safety as a cross-cutting theme, not just featuring the municipal police, but across all departments of the municipality. Guadalajara today has developed a diagnostic tool of collecting data right from the neighborhood, where crime and violence is approached not just from a perspective of crime and violence, but also in terms of addressing the social and spatial vulnerabilities of the neighborhood. In this, we have encouraged the exchanges of experiences. For example, Guadalajara built its approach from the Rotterdam model. Rotterdam has implemented a successful safety monitoring process, which we at the UN are promoting as a good practice. Big data can indeed provide the potential for improving the way we are able to interact with safety data. In India, one of our tools, the safety audit, has been adapted to mobile technology. If you look at your mobile phones now and look at one app called Safety Pin, this app allows you to look at your own immediate environment outside your home, out on your street, and be able to tell the levels of perceived safety, the hotspots that you may find around the area that you can navigate away from. And in this way, citizens co-produce safety for each other by informing each other about the pros and cons of safety in their neighborhoods. We are building an urban safety monitor as we speak today that will enable cities to have a portal, that will enable us to build on current and ongoing crime observatories, or Safe Cities Index, as that is promoted by The Economist today, to build beacon cities that can really not compete against each other in terms of ranking to know who is safer than the other, but use data for their own benchmarking, that can use data to improve their own business climates and also the socially interactive climates. The 2030 agenda says this cannot happen without global partnerships. The SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal 17, is quite emphatic that all aspects of development of the city, all aspects of development of sectorial work that we have, including business, we cannot thrive without partnerships. And this is a key aspect that I would want to leave you with, to know that in the current global governance reality, in a university, an NGO, a youth organization, a women's organization, a local government, a national government hold equal sway in driving that safe, sustainable, inclusive, and resilient city that you are looking for. It is not just now the responsibility of government alone. It is the responsibility of you and me. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Asiago. Well, thank you for spending your time with us. And actually, the theme is very interesting. It's someone that we don't hear very much about, but I think all of us really like it. Now we're gonna get into some questions. So if any one of you guys have any questions, you can do it. Obviously, the questions would need to be in English. If you don't have the question in English, you can write it down on the chat and we're gonna be able to translate it. So if anyone has any question, just raise your hand and just turn on your mic, please. Well, here are some questions in the chat. The first one is from Liliana Chacon. Some questions. What are the actions with UN Habitats in collaborating in Mexico? And are UN currently running any project on Querétaro? If so, what would it be?
Yes, UN Habitat's presence in Mexico is quite strong. On the safety issue, as I mentioned, we have already developed collaboration projects with cities in Mexico, including Guadalajara, including Querétaro. I have been in Querétaro a couple of times, working on dimensions of safety, including the aspect of youth empowerment in your neighborhoods, building on the social capital and social cultural tools that young people, especially in deprived neighborhoods of Querétaro, have shown. We believe that together with our sister agencies of the UN, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, we have developed an evidence-based community safety policy for the municipality of Querétaro. And now, of course, we are more interested in going deeper to building the monitoring frameworks that such policies can demonstrate their impact at the level of the citizenry. So yes, indeed, UN Habitat's presence in Mexico is strong. We work closely with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. For your information, the current Minister of Foreign Affairs, Marcelo Ebrard, was indeed the first president of the Global Network on Safer Cities during his term as the mayor of Mexico City. And the Vice Minister, Marta Delgado, is also today the president of the Habitat Assembly. So UN Habitat and its work in the cities and its work with SEDATU is very key and understood to be a prime driver of sustainable development in Mexico. We intend to increase our collaboration on safer cities over the next year. And it's my hope that a city like Querétaro will be an increasing beneficiary of that.
Well, thank you very much. We have another question from Angela Cortez. What do you think would be the key driver for governments to react to situations regarding the lack of safety?
Could you repeat that again?
Yes. What do you think would be the key driver for governments to react to the situations regarding lack of safety?
I think the key driver is the voice of its own population. When people are affected by safety and security, when businesses are affected by lack of safety and security, the ordinary citizen, the ordinary voter for governments is affected, and governments will react on those perceptions, considering as well that government understands the voter as its prime target for its own reality and existence in power. And so safety is a key indicator that we should use to actually prompt development, in the sense that it is affecting each and every individual citizen in any city. And this is definitely a key driver, for a key driving arena for governments to react to situations of lack of safety.
Okay, we have another one that says, what have been the results of Guadalajara?
Very important. First is process. Guadalajara today appreciates the need to use evidence in periodical ways to invest in actions on safety in the neighborhood. Safety is a no one size fit all solution, as I mentioned. Safety requires each and every day a look at what are the trends in a particular neighborhood to respond to. Guadalajara has now that capacity to respond to that. Guadalajara too has also been able to build the capacity of a coordinating unit within its structure and file to coordinate the actions of different departments, including a mayor's prevention cabinet. Guadalajara is now, through the safety initiative, identified by UNESCO as the World Book Capital, which will also translate to them building libraries in their neighborhoods as a way to encourage reading and writing of communities that otherwise may see themselves idle and approaching gangs as their only source of comfort. In this way, Guadalajara is increasingly now turning to proven practices on the prevention of crime and violence as a way to tackle the challenges of lack of safety within their midst.
Thank you very much. We have a raised hand from Gamis, if you want to open your mic and talk.
Oh, of course. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, first than anything, I wanted to thank you. Yeah, I'm really thankful that you could give your time in order to be here. I think that for us as young people, at least I'm studying international business, and I know a lot of my classmates are here too. So I think it is really impactful to hear from someone that can give us that global perspective and kind of things that we need to take into account as we go along our careers. And what I wanted to ask is that if you have any success story or something that comes to mind about improvement in the safety of cities that you have observed in your career.
Yes, just as I mentioned, something that would be close to you as a young person in terms of the improvement of safety is the investment in relationships. Moving away from just understanding safety as the responsibility of the police and the criminal justice to one where it's about building trust between the communities and the security agencies. And part of the ways in which we need to look at rebuilding this type of relationship of trust is using the type of cultures, the type of positive skill sets that communities that are otherwise criminalized, like the young people, often demonstrate. I showed you the way arts and culture has been applied in communities that otherwise are understood as gangs to move them from being seen as problems to be managed to actually positive forces of change, to be agents of change. These are some of the transformative things I have witnessed in my own career. I have seen across the globe in the cities that I have interacted with and worked with, positive changes taking place in communities where safety is used as a way to improve the quality of life of people. I have seen safety as a space that has also been used to build neighborhood interaction and cohesion. I have seen safety as a as an arena that has enabled better business practices within cities. And in this sense, I can only vouch to say that this is an innovative space that we all need to look at in a multi-sectorial way, in a multidisciplinary way. It does not belong to the architects. It does not belong to the sociologists. It doesn't belong to the anthropologists alone. It belongs to all, including the business administrators. We all, safety is one unique field where everyone can actually apply their skill sets to improve the safety for all citizens.
Thank you. We have one question. Can we find you in any social network to follow your work more closely?
Could you repeat that question again?
Can we find you in any social network to follow your work?
Yes, UN Habitat has, as you see on the PowerPoint, has the website, unhabitat.org. You can visit that and see what we are doing. We have the Global Network on Safer Cities, and I'm sure we can interact more and more with those type of facilities. Of course, we are also available on Twitter. We are available on Facebook. We are available on Instagram. And indeed, yeah, you just need to type UN Habitat, find there. We have World Urban Campaign that also runs. I will invite you every October, which is called the Urban October Month, to participate in adapting the urban story with UN Habitat to your own city, to your neighborhood, your own university. Let's demonstrate this by actually being part of the global community, by linking into such social media sites as the World Urban Campaign. I will also invite you to join us as part of this process in our World Urban Forums, which take place every 2 years and bring about 15,000 people together. Last year it was held in Abu Dhabi, and I can also tell you that your current deputy, Maria Aleman, was part of that World Urban Forum in Abu Dhabi. And a lot of young people also from Querétaro came to the World Urban Forum in Abu Dhabi. And next will be next year in Katowice, Poland. You're also welcome to link into the web, see what the World Urban Forum is, and participate in that transformative process as you, the individual. You can make the change.
Thank you very much. We have one more question from Hannah Isita, and it says, how hard is it to get a job working for the UN? And what can someone do to improve their chances?
I think just by your interaction today, you are already on the road of improving your chances. The facility, the UN is like any other organization or institution around the world. It's for the people, by the people, and it's all about the competitive process that we all know. There is no shortcut to it. The processes are all clearly defined on our social media sites. And there is no rocket science idea to it. I was a young person just like you. I was able to through my activism, student activism in my heydays, I was able to find myself connecting and socially networking with activities of the United Nations. And through that, I was able then to get to know where and how I would seek to find opportunities of work. And that's brought me all the way to where I am now today with over 17 years experience. I would encourage you to equally take the same path, where you begin by engaging the UN in Mexico, in the activities that you are doing. And in the process, also you and globally, as you're doing with me today. And in this process, begin to start finding your space and your art in this endeavor.
Thank you very much. We have one last question from Gio Games. Could you please repeat the two strategies that UN is applying that were mentioned after the 17 goals of the program at the beginning?
Yes, I talked about the two enabling policies that the new urban agenda working towards. One is the national urban policy, and two is city development and growth strategy. I believe I can show you this here. And this is precisely what I believe is the two enabling frameworks that we could look at and see as a way to build cities that work for people.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, if anybody else had any question, thank you again very much, Mr. Asiago, for letting your time to us. And well, really very grateful that you were here with us. You are welcome to stay to the rest of our event. The only problem is that the next are in Spanish, obviously, but you are always welcome. And thank you, everyone.